If you're one of the thousands of Canadians that are planning to move down to the US, whether it be permanently or temporarily, specifically for the purpose of starting or expanding a business, you're going to want to watch this entire video, because today on the Canadian Expat and the Global Canadian Business Forum, we're going to introduce you to an individual who has literally written the book on not only getting visas and permits to start a business in the US, but also getting grants to do so successfully. As with any successful operation, the most efficient way of reaching a goal is to build a team around you. My guest today has been described as a legal powerhouse. Lauren Cohen, originally from Toronto, now in Boca Raton, Florida, is an immigration lawyer, successful business owner, concierge, best-selling author, speaker, and overall superhuman. And she's on your side. Lauren, welcome to the Canadian Expat and the Global Canadian Business Forum.
Thank you so very much. And I so appreciate your kind words. Superhuman? Oh my God, today I don't feel superhuman, but thank you.
Lauren, we often get a lot of different questions about what it's like to move down to the US. Can you, before we get into what you do for a living, can you describe a little bit how you ended up where you are?
Sure. Well, mine was not the regular path. In the 90s, I came here for the American dream. That did not work out, and moved back to Toronto in 97, and I was really cold. So I moved back in October. Not the smartest choice for somebody who lived in Florida for 3 years. I lived in Thornhill. I don't know if you know this, but I lived in Thornhill and I worked in Mississauga. So the drive was not exactly easy. It was no subway. So I remember the first or second time in the winter I was driving to work, and I called my mom and said, I'm just keeping on going south. I'm not stopping, because I just couldn't deal with the cold. So in 2001, right before 9/11, perfect timing, I moved back to Florida and I started a business and lost my shirt, literally. And I've been here ever since, struggling, succeeding, paving paths for others. I have an ex-husband who was, and that's really me into what I do. But I stay here, and sometimes it's challenging. Like right now, I'm not near my family. It's challenging through this whole coronavirus crisis. But you make it work, and you do the best you can. And it's a great place in a lot of ways. Just that right now we're all facing a lot of challenges, no matter where you are.
So true. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. Right now is an incredibly challenging time. For those that are watching in the future, right now we're in the heat of the coronavirus.
Literally, the heat of it. With no social touching, no, you can't barely go out. The stores are closed. The restaurants are closed. The schools are closed. That's the worst.
Indeed. It's a tough time.
Yeah.
Lauren, here at the Canadian Expat, we're all about celebrating Canadians living abroad that are significantly contributing back to Canada. Now, over the years, you've helped a large number of Canadians to do business in the US who are now successfully trading, doing lots of things.
Right.
Can I encourage you to give us maybe an example or two of maybe somebody that you've helped?
Well, I would like to give you an example of somebody that I'm actually helping right now as we speak, because he's going to be, once he gets his visa, which will be soon, my number one, he's my VIP client, and he's from Calgary. I'm not going to name any names, but he is a very successful entrepreneur. I met him and we had an instant bond. And he had been to many, many immigration lawyers before. And by the way, when we talk about what I do, I happen to be an immigration lawyer, but I'm very atypical, and I don't do what other immigration lawyers do. I'm the quarterback of all things related to getting his visa. So he came to me, and he's a major influencer in the entrepreneurial world. And today he had a mastermind this afternoon, and just to get everybody at ease a little bit. And it was amazing because, we're in this global crisis, and it's an amazing thing to think that we can still have a community around us. We're not as isolated as we would have been even 10 years ago or 5 years ago. We have Zoom, we have webinars, we have global networking. I mean, half of my networking is online anyway. But let's get back to this gentleman. So this gentleman, who happens to be, as I said, like a brother to me, he has been running events in the US for a while and making quite a bit of his revenue from his Canadian company from US orientation or US customers or US business. And the reality is, as soon as you do that, you are potentially violating law. You can go to an event in another country, but once you're making money in another country, and and he's very careful because he takes it all in Canada, but once you're making money in the US, we'll talk specifically about Canada and the US, you are susceptible to various laws, and you're not really allowed to draw income. On a B1, B2, which Canadians get for up to 6 months, you can come here and investigate business options and, buy real estate and do certain things and look at business opportunities, but you can't, and you can even own a business, but you can't be actively earning revenue here. So we're getting this gentleman an E1 visa. Now the E1, there's two main visas. The E1 and E2 are the two main visas that Canadians access. The E1 is a treaty trader visa. Now in my book, and as you said, I wrote the book. In my book, Finding Your Silver Lining in the Business Immigration Process, I call it the forgotten visa. Why? It's not that people of this visa. Even immigration lawyers tend to overlook this visa. It's based on trade. So the requirement is that you must trade in goods and or services. At least 50% of your trade in goods and or services must be with your home country. It can be with your own business in your home country. It can be with any number of businesses. You can buy your web design, you can buy your graphic design, you can buy your products, you can buy your services, whatever. But at least 50% of your cost of goods sold expenses that's paid out has to be to your home country. Okay? So that's the requirement, and it has to continue on and on. So he qualifies easily for that. I'm about to work with another gentleman, also an influencer, also does about 75% of his business from the US. Not because they try to, it's just because of sheer volume. Like, you've got numbers and people willing to make investments in America that are much greater than in Canada. So here I'm giving them an opportunity, but this gentleman is not moving. He's not going to be an expat. He's staying put in Calgary. And that's his goal. And this visa allows him that flexibility. He has to have a nexus of business operations in the US and be actively involved in running the business, but he doesn't have to physically move. So it's an option. And that's something that a lot of people don't focus on. So that's a really good story. I've worked with a lot of successful real estate investors from Canada that don't realize that they are potentially violating the law running their real estate businesses. A couple is fine, but as soon as you're involved in running a business and earning income, you are skirting the law. So let's find you a way. There's an E2 visa, which is treaty investor visa, which is based on your investment. And most of the time we can work a business plan around your many real estate investments or multifamily or commercial or a combination thereof, a treaty investor visa. And you can get a 5-year renewable visa, just like with an E1, it's up to 5 years renewable. And there are ways to convert it, not directly, but there are ways to apply for a green card if you want permanent residency. So it's not a direct path, but it is available.
Not being somebody who is familiar with US visa landscape, it sounds a little bit like alphabet soup. You've got E1, E2, HB1. What are the risks of getting it wrong?
So it happens. I just had somebody call me earlier that has a colleague in Russia. Now, Russia does not have access to either of these visas. So just to be clear, the E1 and E2 are the top coveted visas in my book, but they're only available for people from countries that have a bilateral treaty of trade and commerce with the US. So Canada has both visas available. Israel, as of last May, has both visas available. Brazil has neither visa available. Russia has neither visa available. So this Russian guy was denied. I don't even know what visa he was denied, but he was denied a visa. So he's coming to me saying, okay, now what? So there's no such thing as the right or wrong choice. You have to make the best choice in the circumstances, and there's no guarantee of anything. So for somebody with high net worth that wants a green card immediately, we're going to do an EB-5, which is a green card based on investment and job creation. Okay, but that's not always available depending on your financial situation. There is no right or wrong answer, just the best answer for the circumstances. And it is an alphabet soup, absolutely.
It's a bit of a maze replete with trap doors, booby traps, and dead ends.
Oh my gosh, so much.
Where do you suggest one start?
With me. So it's funny because the person who was referring this prospective client to me this afternoon said, well, what do I tell him? I go, I don't know. I don't have enough information. I don't even know what visa he was denied. And he wants to know what to tell him. How can I help him? I'm like, I don't know enough. So the reality is that I work with a lot of realtors. I happen to be a realtor myself. The key is that working with somebody like me is very different than just calling, especially an immigration lawyer in Canada that's handling US immigration law that may not be as familiar with all of the nuances. Working with me, I'm working with the top of the top. I'm working with the best in each category and the people that speak any language, depending on what your needs are. And I'm going to bring in my team. Like you said, team. It's all about the team. And your most efficient way of reaching a goal is building a team around you. My 4 favorite words are stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Because if you try to do everything, or you go to just the cheapest, most cheerful, not cheerful, I try to be cheerful, but the cheapest, most economical service provider, you're going to get what you pay for. Okay? So coming to me, you're going to get the holistic approach, which really is very rare. I don't know of anybody else that offers the comprehensive service that I offer, from helping you vet businesses, to determining what visa makes sense, to bringing the team together, to writing the business plan, to getting the visa. So I'm pre-visa planning, then get the visa, then post-visa implementation. And how does that look? So you can actually run your business and be sure that you're going to be able to renew your visa when the time comes. You don't want to prepare for that 2 months before your deadline, which is the new client he came to us to renew his visa, and it's done in June, and he still hasn't even paid our retainer. So he's really behind the 8 ball.
Do you find that people are not thinking about the next step after this current visa runs out?
Yes. Now, Canadians aren't as guilty. This guy happens to be Canadian, but generally speaking, Canadians are much more like they plan ahead more, right? That's what we do. We are much more cautious and more conservative. But when you're dealing with people from other countries, which shall remain nameless, they're kind of like shoot from the hip. And a lot of people, and you'll probably know this, a lot of people deal with visas at the 11th hour, or they don't think about their needs ahead of time. Or even worse, they get the visa and they're like, okay, that's all I need to do. Now my business is going to run itself. And it doesn't. It doesn't. And so it comes time to renew, and they really don't even have a business in place. I actually created a whole system called Scale Up Checkup, designed to help these businesses actually run as a business, so that they do have a viable business that's capable of qualifying for the renewal of the visa.
Fantastic. Quite a toolbox you've created.
Thank you.
So, assuming that an individual they've acquired a visa, the correct visa after consulting with you, they've come up with a business plan that makes sense for the region that they're going to be trading with in the US. They move down there temporarily, perhaps a little bit more permanently. For yourself being in Boca Raton, and this is what I'm curious about, in your area, is there a Canadian expat community that you're able to network with down there? Where you
a little bit, not as much as you would think, because it very really embrace life here. But I certainly have friends that are Canadian. You're always more prone to culturally to your, like, there's an affinity. And I will say that through all of this crisis, the Canadians are coming together a little more and helping each other a little more, because we just tend to be a little kinder. I didn't say that out loud, but it's true. We do. So yes, I actually had a group called Canadians in South Florida, and it was a group of women that were just getting together to kind of get to know each other and schmooze. It didn't really last very long. There are other groups like that. There's a group called Canadian Expats in Florida. A Montreal guy runs it, but there's also Canada Quebec Chamber. I'm sorry, not Canada Quebec, Quebec Florida Chamber. There's a lot of Quebec people that, like Quebecers, that kind of group together, more so than everywhere else. And them are francophones, because obviously they're going to be a little more distinguishable than we are. We just kind of tend to blend in a little bit more.
For an individual who has decided they're going to move down to the States, they've consulted with you, they've got visas together, they've got a business plan, they're moved down. What do they do to prepare?
Ready. The movers are at their house and they're on their way.
Exactly. What do they do to prepare culturally?
So I'm going to tell you the first thing to teach yourself or tell yourself: expect the unexpected, because even today, I'm still amazed, and I've been here almost 20 years, by how different things really are. People are different. Now, each part of America is going to be different, but the systems are different. Banking is different. The postal system is different. The way people treat each other is different. I mean, there's hoarders in all the stores right now, like hoarding like loaves of bread. I mean, it's crazy. And we're used to this here in a way because we go through hurricanes, but this is like a hurricane on 50 bajillion steroid. So I think that the thing, so I also have a relocation company, a corporate relocation company. And one of the things that we have as a component of our relocation company is destination services, which is cultural affinity, which is what schools do we go to? What forms do we fill out? Now, obviously, unlike moving to somewhere like Israel, you're not going to have a language barrier, okay? Because, it's English. For the most part, it's the same, but it's still different. And it's those differences that you need to embrace instead of being fearful of them. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but expect the unexpected is the best advice I can give.
It absolutely answers the questions. Lauren, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will include your contact information, including a link to your website, your phone number in the description of the video below. Thank you very much for joining.
All right. Listen, you have a good night and stay safe, and thank you.
And for all those watching, if you've liked this video, please hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Until next time.